You search for the best-selling golf clubs on Amazon expecting to see the newest driver, the one every tour pro swings, the one that costs more than your first car payment. That is not what came up. The number one best-selling golf clubs in America right now cost less than $350 for the entire bag, and the single most purchased club in the country is one a lot of so-called experts would be embarrassed to carry. I laughed the first time I saw that list. Then I stopped laughing, because here is the truth. I built this whole thing to prove. The best-selling clubs on Amazon are not selling because golfers are cheap or stupid. They are selling because a quiet group of players figured out something the big brands spent 30 years hoping you would never notice, and I know exactly how good the hiding was because I paid for the marketing for the better part of 2 decades. I want to show you a number before we go one step further. 239 microseconds. That single measurement, buried in a rule book, is the reason the $1,800 bag in my garage and the $300 bag on that bestseller list do almost the exact same thing when the ball leaves the face. Stick with me, because by the end, I am going to hand you a fix you can use this weekend with the clubs already sitting in your trunk. You do not have to buy anything. You just have to see what I finally saw. Let me take you back to the moment it cracked open for me. It was a Tuesday, early spring, cold enough that my hands ached on the range. I had just spent $629 on the newest driver, the flagship model, the one with the commercial where the ball explodes off the face in slow motion. I had traded in last year's driver, which I had also bought at full price 12 months earlier, and I stood on that mat hitting my brand new Pride and Joy next to a retired guy named Earl who was swinging a driver he told me he bought used for $40. Earl was out driving me, not by a little, by a club length, over and over, with a swing that looked like he was swatting a fly. I told myself it was the swing. It is always the swing, right? That is what they want you to believe. Any gap between what the marketing promised and what you actually got. That is your fault, your tempo, your age, your flexibility. Buy the next thing and it will fix you. But Earl said something to me that day that I could not shake. He said, "Son, they all hit the same wall." And I did not know what he meant. Therefore, I went looking, and what I found is the reason I can no longer keep my mouth shut. Here is the wall Earl was talking about. Every driver sold legally in this country has to pass a test. The governing bodies measure something called the coefficient of restitution, the spring-like effect of the face, the trampoline. The legal ceiling is 0.83. They also measure characteristic time, how long the ball stays on the face, and the limit there is that number I gave you, 239 microseconds with a small tolerance on top. Once a driver face hits that ceiling, it is illegal to make it any hotter. It physically cannot give the ball more energy without breaking the rules of the game. Now, here is what nobody in a glossy commercial will ever tell you. Drivers reached that legal ceiling years ago. The flagship I bought for $629 was slammed against the exact same wall as the driver in the bargain bin. The face on my expensive club could not spring back one hair faster than a conforming budget face because the law does not allow it to. Earl's $40 driver and my $600 driver were both maxed out at the same trampoline. The difference I paid for was not speed. It was paint, a fresh sticker, and a story. I want you to feel how that felt. Standing on that cold mat, I had spent, and I actually went back and added it up, more than $11,000 on drivers alone over about 15 years. Chasing ball speed that was capped by law before I ever swung. That is the moment the curtain moved for me. And once it moves, you cannot unsee what is behind it. But the driver was just the first thread, because when I pulled it, the whole sweater started coming apart and the irons were next. Let me ask you something. Have you ever noticed that every few years your new set of irons goes a little farther and you tell yourself the technology is finally working? I believe that religiously. I told my buddies my new 7-iron went a full club longer than my old one. I bragged about it. I was proud of a number that was, and I mean this literally, a lie printed on the bottom of the club. Here is what they did. Slowly, over decades, so slowly that no single year set off any alarms, they changed the lofts. The loft is the angle of the face. and it is the single biggest thing that controls how far a ball flies. Back in the 1980s and into the 90s, a standard 7 iron had a loft of around 35 degrees. Some were 34. That was normal. That was a 7 iron. Go look at a modern Game Improvement 7 iron today. A lot of them sit at 28 degrees. Some are even stronger, down near 27. Do you understand what that means? The club they are selling you and stamping with a 7 is built at the loft that used to be a 5 iron. Of course, it goes farther. It is not a better 7 iron. It is a old 5 iron wearing a 7 iron's name tag. And here's the part that made me genuinely angry after the fact. When they strengthen the loft to fake distance, the ball launches lower and lands hotter, which means it does not hold the green. So a senior with a slower swing hits this jacked up 7 iron. The ball comes screaming in low, and it bounces over the back. You lose the one thing that actually saves your score, which is the ability to stop the ball where you aimed. They sold you distance you did not need and stole control you desperately needed, and they charged you a premium for the privilege. That is the first real piece of the truth I promised you. So let me make it plain and usable. When you look at that bestseller list on Amazon and you see a complete set for $300, do not assume it is junk because it is cheap. Look at the lofts. A lot of those budget sets use gentler, more traditional lofts, which for a slower swing actually launch higher and land softer than the jacked up premium irons. The cheap set is not just cheaper. For a senior, it can genuinely be more playable. But if the irons are a magic trick with the lofts, I still had not answered the real question. What is that single number one best-selling club, the one the experts sneer at? Because when I finally clicked on it, I felt my whole idea of good and bad equipment turn upside down. It was a chipper. A little club that looks like a putter with a slightly angled face, built for one job, to bump the ball onto the green from just off the edge. Golf snobs hate this club. For years, I would have told you it was a crutch, a toy, something no real golfer would be caught dead with. I said those exact words to a friend once, and I am ashamed of it now because the numbers do not care about my ego. A short pitch shot with a lofted wedge is one of the hardest, most punishing shots in the entire game, especially for a senior. You have to catch it clean, the club is bouncing and digging, and the miss is brutal. Chunk it, and it goes 4 feet. Blade it, and it screams across the green into a bunker. The margin for error on a wedge from a tight lie is tiny, and it gets tighter every year as your hands and eyes change. The chipper removes almost all of that risk. You make a simple putting stroke, the ball hops on and rolls out like a long putt. There is no bounce to fear, no digging, no thin skulls across the green. Amateurs using a chipper from the fringe routinely get up and down at a far higher rate than the same amateurs flailing with a sand wedge. That is why it is the best seller. Not because buyers are fools, because thousands of everyday golfers quietly discovered it saves them 3, 4, 5 strokes around, and they told their friends, and their friends bought one too. It went viral the honest way by actually working. I need to stop here because I know exactly who is watching right now, and I know what you are thinking. You are thinking, that is fine for the guy about to buy new clubs, but I already have my set. I am not spending another dime. So what is in this for me? I hear you. I was you. So this next part is built specifically for the golfer who is not buying anything and just wants more out of the clubs already in the bag. No new purchase, nothing to add to a cart, just a change you can make on the first hole of your next round. You already own a chipper. You just do not know it. It is your 7-iron or your 8-iron sitting in your bag right now. Think about that stamp on the bottom of the club again, the loft that lied to you, the shaft you never questioned. Every one of those little decisions has quietly bled strokes off your card for years, and nobody ever handed you the map to fix it. That map exists, and I put it in writing so you never have to stand on a cold mat feeling fooled again. It is the Iron Clarity Complete Set, a straight-talking collection you download and keep. Swing Strong maps the 4-iron family so you know exactly where your game lives, and it exposes the loft deception so your so-called 7-iron never fools you again. Iron Decoded teaches you to read every miss and fix it at the source. and it lays out the honest taxonomy of blades versus game improvement versus super game improvement, so you finally know what you are actually holding. And Iron Code hands you the 2026 complete iron building system, the 7 costliest buying mistakes taken apart piece by piece, and a full gapping blueprint. So no yardage goes missing between your clubs. Here is a check you can run tonight, free, at your own kitchen table. Grab your 7-iron and look up the loft the maker actually publishes for it. If it reads 28 or 29 degrees, you are holding what used to be a 5-iron, exactly the loft trick the book exposes, and you can prove it to yourself in about 2 minutes. The fastest way to get the books is to scan the QR code right there on your screen, or go to the link in the description or the pinned comment. And this matters no matter when you are watching, because your next fitting or your next set purchase is coming eventually, and walking in already unfoolable is worth more than any shiny new flagship. Now let me hand you the free chipper trick I promised, the one that costs nothing and works this weekend. Here is exactly what to do. Next time you are just off the green, 20 or 30 feet from the pin with a lot of green to work with, do not reach for your wedge. Take your 7-iron, choke down on the grip, way down, until your hands are almost touching the steel. Stand a little closer to the ball, get your hands ahead of the club face, and this is the whole secret, make your putting stroke. Not a golf swing, your putting stroke. Same tempo, same length, back and through, shoulders rocking, wrists quiet. What happens is the ball pops off low, carries just onto the edge, and then rolls out toward the hole, exactly like a long putt. You have turned your 7-iron into a chipper for free. I use this shot more than any wedge shot in my bag now, and my up and down rate climbed so much that a guy I play with accused me of taking lessons. I did not take a lesson. I stopped trying to hit the hero flop, shot the commercials, glamorized, and started rolling the ball like the bestseller list quietly told me to. Try it on the practice green before your round. 10 balls with the 7-iron, putting stroke from the fringe. You will feel the fear leave your hands. That fear, that little flinch over a tight chip, has probably cost you more strokes over your golfing life than any driver ever gave you, and it costs nothing to fix. Now, that alone is worth the price of admission, but I promised you I would take you all the way to the bottom of this, and the bottom is deeper than lofts and chippers. Because once I understood the loft trick and the driver ceiling, one question kept me up at night. If the performance is capped and the irons are just relabeled, then what exactly am I paying for when I buy the premium brand? Where does that extra $300, $400, $500 actually go? Therefore, I did something I should have done 15 years and $11,000 earlier. I stopped reading the ads and started reading the test data. Independent robot testing, the kind where a machine swings every club at the identical speed so the human variable is gone. And what the robot showed me was the thing the whole industry is built on hiding. When you take the marketing away and let a machine hit a premium flagship driver and a budget-conforming driver at the same speed, the gap in carry distance is often just a few yards. Sometimes it is almost nothing. The ball speed is nearly identical because, remember, they both slammed into that same legal wall. The launch and spin can be tuned on either one, and here is the kicker. The tighter dispersion the expensive club is famous for often comes down to the fitting, the shaft, and the setup, not some secret metal that only the rich club possesses. Let me put that in dollars, because that is the language the industry actually speaks. I compared what I spent chasing the newest release every single year to what I would have spent buying last year's model, the exact same club with a 1-year-old sticker, roughly 6 to 12 months after launch. The discount on a driver that is one model cycle old is frequently 40 to 50%. The same club, the same face, the same legal ceiling. The only thing that expired was the marketing budget. I was paying every year a premium of hundreds of dollars purely for the privilege of owning the newest paint job before anyone else. And that is when the betrayal finally had a shape I could name. It was not one villain in a boardroom twirling a mustache. It was a machine, a system engineered to make you feel behind. New release, new commercial, new tour win, new reason your current clubs are suddenly old and slow. They cannot make the ball go meaningfully farther because the law will not let them, So instead, they sell you the feeling that everyone else already upgraded and you are the last one hitting yesterday's driver. That feeling is the actual product. The club is just the delivery device. I fell for it for 15 years. I traded in perfectly good drivers that were already maxed out at the legal limit so I could buy an identical legal limit with a different color crown. I want that time and that money back, and I cannot have it. But you can keep yours starting right now. And that brings me to the thing I most wanted to tell you, the piece that made all of this finally click into place. I found it digging through the equipment forums, the places where regular golfers talk to each other instead of being talked at. On the senior golf boards and the equipment threads, the same discovery kept surfacing, posted by different people who had clearly figured it out on their own, and it lines up perfectly with the robot data. Here it is. The single biggest free gain available to a golfer over 50 is not a new club at all. It is the lie angle and the shaft flex on the clubs you already own matched to your real current swing speed. And almost nobody checks it because there is no commercial for it and no profit in it. Let me explain why this is the real secret, the one they bury. As we get older, our swing speed drops. That is not a tragedy, it is just physics. But here is what the industry never volunteers. A shaft that is too stiff for your current speed will not load and unload properly, and it robs you of both distance and consistency. Millions of seniors are out there swinging stiff flex shafts because they bought stiff when they were 45 and never rethought it, or because a store clerk handed them stiff without asking. Moving to the correct flex for your actual speed can give you back ball speed and a higher, softer landing flight, the exact flight the jacked up premium iron stole from you. And the lie angle the sole sits at address, if it is off by even a couple of degrees, it sends the ball left or right no matter how perfectly you swing. A club that is too upright pulls your shots, too flat pushes them. Fixing lie angle is a 5-minute job on a machine with a bending bar, and a club fitter will do it often for a handful of dollars per club on the clubs already in your bag. No new set, no $600 driver, just your own irons bent to fit the human actually holding them. This is the hero's journey of the whole thing. The truth existed all along. Fitters knew it. The old craftsmen knew it. Then the industry buried it under 30 years of distance commercials and loft tricks because a $2 lie angle adjustment does not sell like a shiny new flagship. The regular golfers on those forums saw through it, tested it on themselves, and wrote it down for each other. And now you have it too. So here is exactly what to do this weekend, and it is almost free. Take your irons to any real club fitter or golf shop with a lie board, a simple stripe board you hit off that shows whether your club is sold correctly. Ask them to check your lie angles and to look at your shaft flex against your current swing speed. If you are over 50 and still in stiff shafts you bought a decade ago, be honest about your speed and be open to regular or senior flex. This single afternoon will do more for your scores than any new driver you could buy, and it will cost you a tiny fraction of the price. I did it with a set I already owned, and I hit more greens the next month than I had in 2 years chasing new equipment. That is the confession. That is the whole thing I could not unsee once Earl outdrove me with a $40 driver on a cold Tuesday. The best-selling clubs on Amazon are not a joke, and the cheap options are not garbage. Because the performance ceiling is set by law, the distance on the premium irons is a loft trick, the chipper is the best seller because it genuinely works, and the biggest gain of your golfing life is hiding in the lie angle and shaft flex of the clubs you already own. Here is what I want you to sit with tonight. You were never behind. You were never the problem. You were just standing on the wrong side of a curtain, paying full price for the view, the same way I did for 15 years and $11,000. Now you are on the right side of it, and you cannot unsee it either. That is the gift, and it is also the burden. Because once you know the ceiling is a legal wall and the loft is a magic trick, you will never watch one of those slow-motion exploding ball commercials the same way again. You are the kind of golfer who would rather know the truth than keep the comfortable lie, or you would have clicked away 20 minutes ago. That is exactly the golfer I make these for. Not the guy who wants to be sold, the guy who wants to be told. So tell me one thing in the comments, and be specific, because I read them. What driver are you playing right now? And do you know how old that model actually is? I want to see how many of us have been paying the newest release premium without realizing the club underneath is already at the same legal ceiling as everything else. Drop it below. If you played a chipper or the 7-iron putting stroke chip, tell me your up and down story too, because I guarantee somebody reading needs to hear it. And if you are done being marketed to, if you want to be part of the group that sees the numbers instead of the commercials, subscribe and stand with the rest of us who play smart instead of expensive. The free ebook in the description goes deeper on the exact swing speeds and matching shaft flexes for senior players, so grab that before you're fitting. Next time, I am pulling apart the golf ball because there is a 24 box on that same bestseller list that outperforms a premium ball for a slower swing, and the reason why it comes down to a compression number almost nobody checks. I did not believe it until I saw the data. You will not either until I show you. See you there. I hope you're as fired up as I am. Today I only showed you the overview. Inside the Honest Fairway Club, I pick up right where I stopped with the full club-by-club teardown. And you can ask me your own question, and a real person, me, answers you myself. You're never doing this alone. Just point your phone's camera at the code on screen and cancel anytime with one click. See you in there. Now, if you're wondering which golf ball actually gives you more distance and control without overpaying, I put the top brands head to head, and the winner truly surprised me. That video's starting right here, so stay with me.